Welcome to the Tzurba M'Rabanan Hilchot Shabbat Program with Rabbi Shalom Rosner. Tzurba is a revolutionary halacha sefer which guides you through over 300 topics in Jewish law in a unique signature style. In this weekly series specifically, Rabbi Shalom Rosner learns through the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat volumes, helping us all master the Halachot of Shabbat in just 2 years. Tzurba volumes are available for purchase worldwide on Amazon. And to learn more about Tzurba, or for those in Eretz Yisrael looking to purchase volumes, please head over to tzurbaolami.com. For more information, see the description below. And now, Rabbi Shalom Rosner.
Okay, we are up to the last Shiur in volume number 21 of our Tzurba series. Volume 21, we know, is the Lax family edition of all the Tzurba volumes, and this is the Mervis family volume, where we spoke about so many halachas relating to Hilchot Shabbos. We spoke about Asiyas Ohel, if you remember way back, Milabain, fabrics. We spoke about Topher and Korea, Kosher and Matir, Kosev and Mochek, and now we started getting into the last year. We spoke about dealing with sick people on Shabbos, the different categories of sick people. Cholesh yesh bo sakana. Obviously, you do everything. Cholesh ein bo sakana. And who's in the category of a cholesh ein bo sakana? We'll have a review and a summary in a little while relating to all the different categories. But first, we have the last section of this shiur, of this volume. We're going to start on page 342, where we're going to talk about medicines and the exceptions to medicines when it is mutter, and then we're going to speak about exercise, physical exertion, right? That's what we have left to do in this volume and in this topic. So we spoke about last time, cholesh yesh bo sakana, somebody's life's in danger, or somebody's life could be in danger. Even a Jew could do an issur d'oraisa, a biblical infraction. Number two, cholesh ein bo sakana, somebody whose life is not in danger, but they are, let's say, nofal mishkav, they're in bed, they're stuck, they have a tremendous pain, or the like, so then that is a cholesh ein bo sakana, the flu. And we said for that, cholesh ein bo sakana, a guy could do a d'oraisa. What could a Jew do? That's a machlokas that we had. Maybe a Jew could do a d'Rabbanan. Maybe a Jew can't do a d'Rabbanan. Maybe a Jew could do a malacha b'shinui. That was the Ramban. What about it's a double? If it's a Jew doing a d'Rabbanan b'shinui, that's called a shvus t'shvus b'makam choli. But related to that, and we'll have to see the category, we get into the issue of medicines, taking medicines and other treatments. So the Mishnah tells us that there is an issur of being involved and taking some type of medicine or doing something that seems refuah related. The Mishnah says in Shabbos in the 14th parak. Source number 36, that's what we're starting with, page 342. If somebody has a toothache, one should not gargle, lo yagama bahen, or even not gargle, but using any type of chometz, vinegar, because nobody drinks vinegar. The only reason you'd be taking vinegar is for refuah. So it's clear that you doing refuah, and that would be a problem. If somebody has pain in their loins, right, their hips, so one shouldn't smear on wine or vinegar because that is a medical treatment. What is the issue? What's the issue of taking medicine on Shabbos? It's not an issur d'oraisa. I take medicine. What malacha am I doing? So as we know, the Gemara tells us in Shabbos, Daf Nun Gimel, that the issue is one of shechikas samamanim, grinding herbs, because the medicines of old were made by taking herbs and grinding them, doing the malacha of tochein, grinding, and making them into medicines. So the Gemara says, I'm nervous that if I'm allowed to take medicine on Shabbos, I might be sick, and I might want to get the medicine so quickly that I will come to grind the medicine. And therefore, the Rabbanan asered, in certain cases, taking medicine on Shabbos because of the issur of chash tochein, what's called the gzeira of shechikas samamanim. Says the Gemara there in Shabbos Nun Gimel, but what about if somebody has a fever, putting them into a cold river, right? That's going to cool them down. Why isn't that usher, right? Because if you're doing it for cooling purposes, the Gemara says, Adam nira kemekar. No, because if a person is going into the river, again, we're not getting into the issue of bathing that we discussed in the past, and the minhag kadmonim that the Mishnah Berurah quotes about not bathing even in cold on Shabbos, but separate. For the halacha is nira kemekar. It's not refuah because it looks like you're just cooling off, and therefore it wouldn't be an issue. But again, this is the issur d'Rabbanan of taking medicines on Shabbos. And even though one might say we don't make medicines like this anymore, first of all, we do in some cases. And number two, it's davar b'minyan, right? It's a gzeira d'Rabbanan, and we can't undo it. Tzarach minyan acher latiro. And therefore, it is a clear-cut, bona fide issur d'Rabbanan in the cases where it applies. Where does it apply? So says the Shulchan Aruch, Shin Chav Ches Aleph. Misha yesh lo mechush ba'alma. Source 38. Somebody has a mechush, meaning if somebody is a chol she'ein bo sakana, we'll talk about. We're allowed to take medicine. We'll get to that. But if somebody is in a lower level, somebody has a headache, somebody has, we'll get to examples. Less than a chol she'ein bo sakana, what's called mechush ba'alma, who mischazik v'holet kabari, and he's walking around like a healthy person. Also lasos lo shum refuah. One can't do any refuah for him. Va'afilu adeinu Yehudi gzeira mishum shchikas hamanim. Right, it's a gzeira mishum, the crushing of the herb. Says the Mishnah Brura, afilu dvarim she'ein b'hem mishum malacha gamkin. So even if it's not related at all to grinding, you're taking liquid. Liquid is not grinding. Any other type of medicine, still that is still going to be included in the Isser D'Rabanan. Isser D'Rabanan. What happens? There is a discussion in the Achronim. What if you are not taking something, like most medicines try to cure the illness? What happens if you're only taking medicine just to remove the pain? The illness is there, painkillers. So again, if there's obviously a dangerous situation, a chol sheish basakana in bed, morphine, so then there's nothing to talk about. It's going to be usser. But what about if it's less painkillers, right? Other types of painkillers. So that is a machlokas achronim. The Tzitz Eliezer of Waldenberg, who has so much to say, he wrote so many of his shuvas in and about Shari Tzedek Hospital. So Tzitz Eliezer says in source number 40, if somebody's allowed to take medicines of calming, that's where for thousands of people use these kinds of calming medicines. If you call it a medicine, they don't heal anything. They're just covering up. It's removing anxiety. Removing uncomfortable feelings that cause him lahafriya. It doesn't say go for it, but he says there is definitely room to be makel. As we'll see, whenever there's a tzad to say maybe it's not included, there are many poskim that are makel in various situations because of, even though we just said that the gzeira still applies, it's a darash ben minions or ben yachal atiro, but the reason doesn't really apply anymore in most cases, so it's still aser. But there is flexibility by the poskim because it's what we might call a lower intense Isser D'Rabanan Bizman Hazeh. Again, it still applies, but it's a lower intense. The Tzitz Eliezer says in the case of painkillers where it's not healing anything, maybe it was never included in the Gzeira. Not everybody agrees to that. If you look in the Aruch Shabbos, many other poskim, quotes in the footnote also, say that no, it's still included. Again, if it's so much pain that you have to be on the couch, you have to be in bed, then you can take medicine. That's what we said. Even a goy is allowed to do a d'oraisa, and a Jew maybe could do a d'Rabanan, but this is a d'Rabanan that we'll see soon. Adam asolo meichushim o mimixas choli aser lito truvas b'Shabbos. Amanas lahaga lavis ha-meichushim. One is not. Some posts can quote another tzad. Again, this is not something that we would rely on by itself. But some say, Rav Ovadia discusses this, maybe if you have commercially produced medicine, so maybe that also was never included. The whole gzeira is where if you make your own personal medicines, or medicines that were made at home, but here there's no concern if it's just commercially produced. So that's another tzad l'hakel. Rav Ovadia, the Chazon Ovadia, writes in 42, Yesh matiyun litol aspirin, acamol, Tylenol, afilu ein lo ela mechush bilvad, v'yishus b'chol yam l'hakel b'mistar harbe. If somebody's in pain, and one kid, again, to remove pain, this is very common. Very common. You take, not healing anything. If somebody has a headache, are you healing or are you just removing the pain? You know what the headache is from. So, but there are those that are mako, even if it's not, since it is not healing. So there is this is D'Rabanan. But as we're about to see, there are a number of heterim. These heterim, it doesn't mean that they're loopholes, but they were just never included in the Gzeira. Never included in the Gzeira of Shchigas HaMamanim. So number one, you have here on page 344, food. If something is called Ma'achal Bri'im, food, then even if I'm taking it for medicinal purposes, 100% mutter. What if I'm having chicken soup only because I have a cold? Chicken soup. What if I'm drinking mineral water because I think it's healthier? Mutter. Because if something is called food, ma'achol briim, then it's not aser. It's not the maisa refuah that you're doing. If something is bechefza, It's food that is not included in the Gzeira. Says the Mishnah. It's the Mishnah in the 14th paragraph of Shabbos, source 43. Kol ochlin ochal adam l'rafua. V'kol hamashkin shoseh. Any food, any drink a person can eat or drink for medicinal purposes. What does that include? So the Gemara there says, the next source, Kol ochlin l'suyei mai l'suyei tchol, even if somebody's eating spleen, l'shinayim, because it must be good for healing teeth. V'karshinim, or some type of a legume or vegetable for intestines, even though they're not common foods. And the chiddush is, even if they have some side effects that a normal healthy person wouldn't want, even so, that's what the Mishnah Rashi says, 45. It has side effects. They each have the opposite side effect of not being good for the other part of the body. I might have thought it's not common for people to eat it. Maybe you should say it's asur. No. It's food. Okay, it has a negative side effect, but it's still called food, and therefore it would be mutter. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Any food. Mutter lachlam v'lishtosan. It's mutter to eat and drink. Even though it's painful and it causes side effects in certain elements, it's still going to be mutter. What are some examples? What are some examples of food? So let's see the Mishnah, the Shiur Shabbos. Shiur Shabbos says on the bottom, page 47, source 47. If you only have a little bit of a pain or uncomfortableness, you can't take medicine. You can eat healthy. Honey, putting honey in your tea. Honey with milk. Candies. Not medicine-filled candies, but stam candies. Limon, right? Lemon, or squeeze a lemon onto sugar. Eat an egg if you feel it's good for your throat, because all of these are food, and it's not considered healing. Shmir Shabbos continues that if you have a toothache, a bad toothache, you have to go to the couch. Then, as we'll see, you're considered chol she'ein bo sakana. But if it's not, so then you could take mashka charif. What if you want to take schnapps or brandy? Yain Sarafi says, as long as you swallow it. You shouldn't gargle with it and then spit it out. You have to swallow it. But in that case also, it's called food. It's not a problem. So one heter that we have is ma'achal brim, food. Number two, a second heter that some have, that's the next number of sources, and that is, what if it's medicine, you're not taking it today, but you're taking it on 10 days. It's a regimen of 10 days of antibiotics. So is that included? That's Gzeira of taking medicine. You started this beforehand. Maybe this was never included in taking medicine. Number one. Let's go with that first. Right, so that's the starts with the Gemara in Shabbos. It could be the Gemara in Shabbos says befeirs that it's mutar. Could be. The Gemara there talks about Kuf Memo on Aleph, source 48. Rav Bar Yosef Chash B'Yokar Deliba. He had something in his chest. Also, Ukvar says Zil Shasi Tlasa Tikli Chilsasa Psasal Yomi. Right, for 3 days, take this type of medicine. So he took it on Thursday and he took it on Friday. Oh, and now it's Shabbos. What does he do on Shabbos? Ozal Safras, he didn't know what to do. Ozal Shalom Rosner, he asked in the base medrash, what do I do? Amrulei Tana Devei Elio, Tana Devei Rabada, Amrulei Tana Devei Maravada, Shosa Adam Kavo Kabayim Ve'ena Choshesh. Right? The answer is that a person can have it even on Shabbos. Amar Lo, he says, Lishtos, I'm not asking, Lishros, to soak it, but look at the maskana, top of the next page. Fil Laman da Asar Hani Mili Heicha Dolo Ishti Klal. The only answer is if you didn't start taking it at all beforehand. Aval hacha kiven to ishti chamshu mali chamsha, shabsa iloshasi b'shabbos mistaken. If you took it 2 days, if you don't take it now, it's going to be dangerous. So what is that Gemara saying? So it might just be saying that, no, it's going to be dangerous. Not that you started it before Shabbos that is mutter. But it could be that it's dangerous if you don't continue the regimen of medicine. So maybe that's all the Gemara is saying, that it's part of it'll be dangerous and maybe put you in the category of a chola she'ein bo sakana. The Shmir Shabbos says, Shani hasad ofan sheyechle yafsik be'emsa. If you're going to get sick if you don't continue it, So you're going to go back to that. So maybe that's the heter here. What's the heter here? But what if not? What if you're on a 10-day course? If the doctor says if you miss it, you're going to have the infection again. But sometimes, if you miss a day, it's not going to be terrible. It's not the best thing to do. So that seems to be a machlokas achronim. Rav Moshe rules the chumrah that continuing a course of medicine on Shabbos is not permitted if it's a mild ailment. But Rav Shlomo Zalman says no. That if it's taken for a week to be effective, the doctors say you have to take a week to 10 days, whatever it is. So then stopping it in the middle would have a negative effect. And therefore, you're allowed to. And the Tzitz Eliezer also, as we'll see, V'shamati, says the Shiur Shabbos in source 50. Me'agon Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. To rock im etzem ichor refuah tikron lam nezek, o im hischil lefnei Shabbos v'afsaka to lam nezek. If it's going to affect you and you started beforehand, o shrafu rak shmoni yamar tzufim, you have to have it for 8 days, right? So therefore, you're allowed to, because not taking it would have a negative effect. Rav Shlomo Kluger and some poskim, like the Tzitz Eliezer says, you can rely on Rav Shlomo Kluger, are a little even more mako that if a medicine is not just ground, but it is processed with cooking and maybe even with enzymes, so then maybe also wasn't included in the gzeira. Because the gzeira is only, you might come to grind it, and then grind it, you might come to forget and eat it. But if you're going to have to cook it also, you're not going to come to that. You're not going to come to cooking it. And if you need the cooking to prepare it to be medicine, maybe it was never included if you have to cook it. Says the Sefer HaChaim, Rav Shlomo Kluger, he wrote many svarim. Hayanira Lomar, Ta'afim Nachmir Af B'Hiskel B'Miod Yom. Even if you want to say, if you started it beforehand, it's still Aser, Mikol Makom, Lo Asrina Lecha V'Lishtos, Rak B'Davar, Shavir Fruaso, Shloide Bishol. Only if it doesn't need to be cooked. Rak Ma'arvo Kach V'Ochel V'Shos, you just mix it and eat it as is. There, we're nervous. If you allow refuah, he might come to grind it. But if you need cooking, if you already cooked it, so then you could take it. People aren't going to come to cooking. And therefore, as Sefer Chaim says, the Rav Shalom Rosner says, if you put together a couple of studim, number one, you started taking it before Shabbos. Number two, cooking is needed. Right? See what he says towards the bottom. Bitstarev travayu tekvar iskumi bod yom lasos refuaso v'gam bishlomi bod yom v'derech bisholu mutter. Plus, the idea that it's sold in a industrial public fashion. You don't make it at home. You put all these sudden lahakel. So then, in many cases, one can be makel again by the 10-day regimen. Some say that's not even called taking medicine on Shabbos. That's taking medicine for 10 days, and therefore it was never included. Almost all, also it's pointed out here in the notes that almost all medicines today are processed and cooked in some way and heated in some way, so you would have that tzad lahakel also. Rabbi Lamed writes in Pnini Halacha in 52, Misha ischel litol lefnei Shabbos trufa. Somebody starts taking medicine before Shabbos, so tzrichim litol b'ritzifos mispar yamim. You have to take a couple of days straight. Its effect will be negatively hindered if you skip a day. You can take it on Shabbos. Because some say that the Gzeres Chazal lo if it's produced in a factory. So if you have the medicine, you took it before Shabbos, and it's mass-produced, and it's cooked, so all of those would be allowed. Rav Yitzchak Yosef also says that in 53. Rav Mordechai Elio says if it's antibiotics, you could even start it on Shabbos. So maybe that's also still not called taking on Shabbos. The first day happens to be Shabbos, but it's not called taking on Shabbos. L'dati mutar af lahaskil b'Shabbos tipo be'antibiotica, says Rav Mordechai Elio. So we have, again, medicines on Shabbos are allowed if chol sheish basakana, maybe chol shein basakana, as we'll see, yes. If it is not looked at as a 1 day, but it's a 10-day. If it is called food, machal briyim, there is another heter called, I'm not sure if it talks about it here, I have to remember, preventative. Anytime that medicine is preventative, so then that is also allowed. Because the whole gzera was you're sick and therefore you might come to lose yourself and come make the medicine and grind. But if you're not sick, you're preventing, then that's mutter. taking a Tums on Shabbos in order to prevent heartburn for after the cholent, if you take it beforehand. If somebody knows that they might be getting a migraine, so they take it before they get the migraine. Any type of preventative is not called medicine, right? Bug spray on Shabbos is mutter. You're preventing, or a sunscreen. Again, not into the cream issue, but in terms of the spray, that's mutter because that's preventing. Preventing problems is not an issue. Can a healthy person, for whatever reason, take medicine on Shabbos? We'll have to see what the case is. But this is only for a sick person. They might come to Gzeira Shema Yitzchan. But what about a healthy person? So that's a discussion here of taking a healthy person, starting on page 350. The Torah says, mutter, the only Gzeira is only for sick people. The Torah says, Kol she'enu machol umashke, brian, Asr lo ochel v'shoseh l'rfuah. You can't take it for medicine. Avalam ochel v'shoseh oso l'ra'avo u'litzamo. You're thirsty. You're hungry. And the only thing you have is a medicine, something that has the status of medicine. Ve'en lo choli shari, then it is mutter. Again, often medicines make a person sick if they're not sick. So let's say it's not that type of medicine. So it would be mutter for a healthy person to take medicine. The Beis Yosef adds that even if it's not l'ra'avo u'litzamo, right, even if it's stam, mutter lo lecha v'lishto, says the Beis Yosef, ochel umashkev she'enim achal briam kiva de'eno cholo lecha l'migzer midi. There's nothing to make a gzeira about afilu lo ra'eh v'lo tzama mutter lecha v'lishtos. There is not a problem, and the Shulchan Aruch rules accordingly as well. Source 57, Shin Chav Ches. Again, this whole discussion is in Shin Chav Ches. Kol she'eino machal umashkev briam. If it's not food of a healthy person, because then it will be mutter. If it's not food, asr la'ochlav l'shtos l'refuah. You're not allowed to eat it or drink it for refuah purposes. V'dafka mishiyesh lo mechush ba'alma u'mischaziv el kabari. Only if you don't feel so well, then that's when it's asr. Avalam ein lo shum mechush mutter. If you feel perfect, then it is mutter. The Maggid Avraham is not so convinced. He thinks even a healthy person is not allowed to take medicine, but the Maggid Avraham also, the Mishnah Berurah passes like the Maggid Avraham, but where does this come up? Vitamins. Are vitamins medicine? Are vitamins healing? So some say, well, a vitamin is medicine, so even if you're a healthy person, you're not allowed to take it. That's what the Maggid Avraham and the Mishnah Berurah might say. And that's what Rav Victor Miller, Rav Victor Nevenzahl Paskins in the Haris of his Mishnah Berurah, 59, Lefize Nira da vitaminim asurim b'dleich chash machla. Even if you're healthy, but many other poskim say not. Number one, some poskim say vitamin has a status of food. How many people are sick in the world, and how many people take vitamins? Plenty of people. More people maybe take vitamins than people who are sick. So vitamin has the status of food, number one. Number two, vitamins, it could be preventative. Is vitamin healing anything? It's just making the person stronger so that his body could be better equipped to fight disease. Right? That's a vitamin. So it's preventing illness. It's not healing illness. So that's another reason. Number one, it might be food. Number two, it might be preventative. Number three, if you say a healthy person can take medicine, even if it is medicine, and even if it is healing, but he's a healthy person. It's not really healing anything, he's healthy. So Ramoshed talks about a number of these issues in source number 60. Bibari sha'ochel dvarim she'eino ru'im la'achila. A healthy person that eats items that are not generally ra'ei la'achila. Like vitamins. So he says, maybe according to the Magen Avraham, only when he says even a healthy person has a problem, that only means a weak, healthy person. That it's really helping his condition. But if he's a strong, healthy person, maybe not. And that's what Moshe says, turning the page in source 60. The vitamins do not change a person and give him, make him healthier. It builds the antibodies. It makes your body stronger to fight illness. Even the Magen Avraham would say that's mutter. Why? Sometimes the vitamins that really change your complexion, or at least his insides, makes you stronger. That would be the machlokas between the Beis Yosef and the Magen Avraham. Rav Avadia just takes the Shulchan Aruch and the Beis Yosef Kipshuto that all healthy people can take medicine on Shabbos, right? So what about, let's get to what we mentioned already but we'll see it inside now. And a sick person taking medicine. So if somebody's just a little mechush ba'alma, then he's not allowed to take medicine. Because that's exactly the recipient and the who Chazal were targeting. But what if somebody is ill? Chola she'ein bo sakana. Somebody is ein bo sakana, so that is the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. Both seem to say mutter. Even though some Rishonim don't agree. The Bir Halacha points out it's not unanimous, but that's the Minhag HaOlam, and that's what the Shulchan Aruch quotes. It says the Shulchan Aruch in 62. V'kol she'einu machlo umash gebriyim. This is where the Ramah is. If it's not food, you can't take it. That's the Shulchan Aruch. A healthy person can take medicine. And the opposite. V'chein, says the Ramah, if he's in bed. If he's in bed, it's mutter to take medicine also. So if he's not very sick at all, if he's not sick at all, or if he's very sick, both of those can take medicine. And the Bir Halacha says, even though this is not muskam and unanimous, but still, he writes at the end, Mikol makom lo nucha limchos b'yada mekilin. We can protest those who are mekel. Acharei sheb'Shulchan Aruch sasem kavasayu. The Shulchan Aruch says that this is mutter. Umilsa d'Rabbananu ubepashtus asugidos and srachal v'shalchol adei enohudi mashba yoser kavasayu. So it sounds like that is the proper halacha. And if you look on page 354, there is a beautiful chart relating to everything we have said up until now over the past year and a half. Right? If there's a danger to life, chol she'ish bo sakana, everything's mutter. Everything's mutter. Right? If you're worried about a aver, chashash aver, so we saw that is a machlokas rishonim in terms of what about an isser da'araisa? What about an isser da'araisa? Some say, remember the Nishmat Avram said nowadays every sakanas aver is sakanas nefesh, and therefore everything would be mutter for that too. What about chola she'ein bo sakana? So a chola she'ein bo sakana is one notch down. A Jew cannot do a da'araisa. A Jew cannot do a daraisa for a chol she'ein bo sakana. What about doing a malacha b'shinui? That's what we said last time from the Ramban. Right, malacha b'shinui would be allowed, and that's what many others achronim say also. What about an isser d'Rabbanan? In isser d'Rabbanan, it's a machlokas. We saw the Rashba says mutter. Others say that it is usser. Again, to do a daraisa with a shinui would be better, let's say according to the Ramban, than to do a d'Rabbanan straight out. Good. And if the Rabbana with a shinui, for sure, that would be a shvus to shvus. What about having amir la'akum? Amir la'akum for a chol she'ein bo sakana mutter. Amir la'akum chol she'ein sakana mutter. And taking medicine, as we just saw from the Machaber and the Ramah, medicine for a chol she'ein bo sakana. The mechush ba'alma, which is less than a chol she'ein bo sakana, that's where everything would be usher in that case. Other halachas of taking medicine, the Shiur Shabbos just quotes a number of other items on page 355 relating to taking medicine. You're allowed to rip off. Mutter in the middle. Mutter goes niyar ha'atifa. If you're allowed to take the medicine, you're allowed to rip off the packaging. We spoke about that by Makalkel and by Korea. Try not to rip the place of any letters. Mutter lachto galula l'shnei chazam shavim. You could cut a pill in half. Some of it might get become powder. Isn't that an issur of grinding? Ein tochen achar tochen. If you remember, we discussed that. These pills were already ground up once and then constituted. So now it was reconstituted. So for this, that will be mutter. There's no problem. You could even also dissolve it in water or in a pudding if that is what one needs to do in order to take the medicine. Okay, one final discussion, and that is what about physical exertion and exercise on Shabbos? Physical exertion. So the Mishnah tells us, the end of Shabbos, 22nd parak, Sachin, source 65, page 356. Person can smear oil and gently rub the oil on the skin, but not to exert oneself and really rub it in really hard. What would be the issur of rubbing it really hard? What is mis'amlin? Rashi says, l'shavshei pakoach. Mis'amlin means specifically a contrast to the previous part of the line. You could rub oil in softly, but not hard. Why? What would be rubbing it hard? What would be the issur? So would it be clearly medicinal? Or the Rambam says this is extra level of yegia, type of perspiring, making oneself sweat on Shabbos is not appropriate. Maybe it's uvdin techol, but the Rambam in Hilchot Shabbos, Perachaf Aleph, ein mis'amlin m'Shabbos, ezeu ha'mis'amel, says he generalizes it. Rashi says it's specifically exerting oneself in the smearing. The Rambam generalizes it. Zeshadarsim al gufa b'koach ad sheyiga v'yazia ad sheyahalich ad sheyiga v'yazia. When a person treads on another person's body forcefully until he perspires, or he does it himself, right? Mipnei she'i refuah. The Rambam says because perspiring, just like they said bloodletting was refuah, so perspiring, getting out the sweat glands, that itself is refuah also. So if I do this dafka l'shem refuah, that would be a problem. The Shulchan Aruch says also, Sachan mashmishim la'anosai de shinui v'lo yimashmish b'koach ala brifon yadayin. Do it softly. That's Rashi, and then in 69 he quotes the Rambam. Mis'amlin hainu shadores ala guf b'koach k'dei sheyagia v'yazia. And who do we really paskin like? The Bir Halacha says, the Chori paskin like the Rambam, not to do any types of activities where it's hot and I'm walking to shul and I'm sweating when I get to shul, I didn't do that act in order to sweat and perspire. I went to shul. That's okay. But if I do an action to physically try to bring about perspiration and extra exertion, so that seems to be usher according to the poskim. So Shmiras Shabbos says one should not use a heavy apparatus. That's big weights on Shabbos, right? Because that's not supposed to be involved in that, right? Chadrei kosher. Ein l'sama b'Shabbos, so the Shiur Shabbos in 71. V'af ein lasok b'machshirei kosher. Kamin lasos targilim b'kli kafitze l'shem chizuk shriri aguf, to strengthen your muscles. It's a mitzvah to keep yourself healthy, but not on Shabbos. One shouldn't be doing that on Shabbos. Even simple kelim yuchadim, even little weights for the hand. One shouldn't be involved in that today. The Aruch HaShabbos points out that today people don't intentionally induce sweat for medical purposes, but exercising for health reasons might also be included in the medical treatment if it is done in a very extreme way, that it could be uftin dechol, and if not, even so, it could be mishum refuah, if that is what the purpose is. And somebody we'll get to soon, somebody does not enjoy it. They're doing it dafka l'shem. The doctor told him. So l'chor, there's no isser of refuah here, but targile his amlus could be looked at as a maisa refuah or just zilusa of Shabbos. Right, certain types of exercise is a zilusa. It's a bringing down the spirit and the atmosphere of Shabbos, and that's why that would be a problem. What about generally running on Shabbos? So the Gemara says in Brachas, Dafav, if it's running for a mitzvah, you could run. Right, remember the beginning of Brachas, Amr Bzeira. Source 73. I used to see the rabbis running to the Shiur on Shabbos. Amina. How could they do that? But once I heard Rabbi Shimon Levi say, "La'olam yaretz adam l'dvar halacha afilu b'Shabbos," you could run to a mitzvah even on Shabbos. So I said, "No, I also started running," and that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Generally, one should not run on Shabbos unless it's for a dvar mitzvah. Ein laretz b'Shabbos alam kein hu dvar mitzvah k'gon lebeis hakneses o chayotze bo. The Shulchan Aruch does say, and he's quoting this from the Trumas Hadashen, what if somebody enjoys not in a clearly medicinal, you go to the workout gym, but somebody's taking a power walk and they enjoy it? Says the Shulchan Aruch Mutter, based on the Trumas Hadashen. Bachurim hamis'angim b'kfitzasam u'b'mrutzasam. The young men who enjoy taking a walk and jumping while they walk, Mutter. Mutter l'tayel. And the Mishnah explains that it has to be, generally it would be a violation of the kibadato hilu. Your hiluch should be different than your hiluch on chol. But again, if somebody's taking a walk and it's not nikar and they're in Shabbos clothes, so then it would be okay. And that's what the Shmiras Shabbos discusses. That meikar hadin, all of these are mutter, mischakei ritza, kfitza, tofesas, machur, mutarim, meikar hadin, any type, like kids playing running or jumping games or playing tag, hide and seek, are all mutter. And again, if you enjoy it, the Shlomo Zalman says, even the hit amlus, that type of exercise and power walk would be okay. So we should all keep ourselves healthy during the week or on Shabbos, and eat healthy, and not have to worry about any types of medicines. And as my father always used to end off many of his lectures, I yearn for the daven for the day when I'm put out of business, and the only type of doctors we'll need are to help women have babies. Hashem, we should be zocha not to have to deal with any medicine or any of these shilas on Shabbos or during the week as well. Okay, this finishes volume number 21. Hashem, next time we'll pick up when the 22nd one comes out. We will pick up with that.